Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a bonus edition of Fantasy NBA Today, the Bruski Breakdown 30-team extravaganza, a sports ethos presentation presented by our great partners at FanDuel. So week 6 now in the books. We're a quarter of the way through the season. We know stuff. We know a lot of things. And for our new listeners who may not know, what you guys are going to hear on this show is the result of no joke round-the-clock analysis. It takes place between Friday and even on Thursday, since we had the Thanksgiving break. And it's essentially a race against time to cover every player in the league and be ready for the high stakes pickups on the weekend. And it's just all of the things. So all of the results of that work, we've been able to this year, thank goodness, deliver it to you guys, not only here on the free channels here on Twitter and over at YouTube. By the way, go subscribe at youtube.com/sportsethos. Make sure you're getting all this stuff. But we've been able to break this down for you guys and get it out to you guys. The last 10 years or so, I have not been able to get it out here as much as possible because of the thoracic outlet syndrome and injuries that I've had to heal from. But this year, we're getting it done. And I take you through the weekend's action, and then I'll eventually land you guys into tonight's games, and we will literally cover the entire league. So let's get right to it. We're going to start with teams that played Saturday, and they didn't play Sunday, and they're not playing tonight. And there's just one of them, and it's Golden State. And the story out of Golden State, unfortunately, Stephen Curry out another week or so with a quad contusion. Hopefully it's not the Grayson Allen kind, but at least a week. And in the meantime, it's going to be the Jimmy Butler show. Now, he actually fell hard on his ass, as he would have put it, in Saturday's win, and nothing on the injury report so far, and he seems eager to play. And by the way, they need him to play in Golden State because he's the only offensive engine that they can count on, and it's going to be the Jimmy Butler show. And that's been great news for anybody who's drafted Jimmy Butler this year, as he has been a top 20 to 30 value all season long, completely mashing or smashing, as Doc might say, his ADP, and really no end in sight. And I do think this is the year that he wants to play. Even in the press conference after the game, he kind of gave I forget the exact quote, but it's like, I want to play. I want to be out there. And that hasn't been the case for Jimmy Butler in past seasons. So if he can get over 70 games, he might have a top 15 season in him. And he was getting drafted in the 40s and the 50s and sometimes even in the 60s. So good news for Jimmy Butler. Now, Draymond Green, you'd think maybe Draymond Green would get some of that action with Steph Curry out. He's been mostly bad this season. He had it going about 10 days ago and then fell back to earth. He had a 0 for 9 shooting effort in this last game, 2 points, 9 boards, 4 assists, and 1 steal. If you're in an 8-cat league, he's still getting you late round value. If you're in a 9-cat league, he's at the back end of the top 200, and I think you can move on. Even if turnovers are being avoided or you don't care about turnovers, just get a better player. Moses Moody, a little bit of a dip here, but I don't even know if I want to call it a dip. I feel like he's done well in the dip to sustain his value, a top 115 to 130 value on the season, 26 minutes per game. And over the last 10 games, shooting just 39.4%. These are bounce back numbers if I've ever seen them. So make sure that you're there for the Moses Moody top 75 bounce back. That's probably going to happen anytime now. And especially with Steph Curry out, they need him. So let's get to the teams that played Sunday and they don't play here tonight. We had Oklahoma City at Portland. Now, they are, Oklahoma City and Portland. I think they might actually be playing tonight. So I might have my daily wrong here. But at any rate, we're going to cover Oklahoma City and Portland right now. Isaiah Hartenstein out at least a week with a calf strain. Alex Caruso, questionable right quad. Jalen Williams, 2 games under his belt since returning mid-round production, so everything's good there. AJ Mitchell could have easily hit your waiver wire after playing just 5 minutes in Friday's game. He suffered a knee contusion, but then he returns Sunday, and he gets you 17 points with 5 boards, 5 assists, and a steal in 29 minutes with Williams in the lineup. Now, there's minutes out here with Isaiah Hartenstein out, and it's worth noting that Aaron Wiggins, that is, Isaiah Joe, combined for just 34 minutes. Lou Dort got 28 minutes in this game. Cason Wallace in a dip, just 21 minutes in this game. So we can slice and dice these minutes any way you want, but the easiest thing to say is that AJ Mitchell just isn't going away right now, and he might not go away all season. Even taking on that 5-minute game in his per game ranks, he's been a top 90 value on the season. So AJ Mitchell, I'm not dropping him. I'm just rolling with it. I've had some tough ad drop calls because I have a lot of good guards on my teams right now. Let's say about 6 or 7 guards on 16 player rosters where AJ Mitchell is the 7th guard. Well, if I had to drop AJ Mitchell to get Kevin Porter, I said yes to that the other day. I'm not getting rid of AJ Mitchell for anybody outside of the top 100, that's for sure. And the questions in the top 75 to 100 range, would I make the swap there? Obviously, life is good right now at the guard position for me to have that kind of a question. Somebody who's similar, Cason Wallace, in terms of overall value, this is a guy who's been in a dip for about a month now, and he's still getting 2.2 steals per game. And as a result of that, he's still valued in the 80 to 100 range. This is a player that I was actually looking at and asking myself, would I drop AJ Mitchell for Cason Wallace? And I actually probably will stay with AJ Mitchell because the production is more balanced. It's not just stuck in the steals per game category. And with Wallace, I'm also concerned that he might actually be hurt. This low minute total and some of the lower numbers that we've seen out of Cason Wallace, it just doesn't scream Cason Wallace. At the beginning of this season, it felt like Cason Wallace was really turning the corner and becoming one of the better players, better young players. Let's qualify this a little bit better. Better young players in the league at his position doing the things that he's doing. And now falling back, I think Cason Wallace is a must-roster player in 12-team standard formats just based on his body of work currently and the fact that this is the dip and he's got top 50 potential if everything starts going right for him. But if you're in a situation where you don't need the steals, I don't think you need Cason Wallace. So that should hopefully inform some of your ad drop calls out there. On the other side of this game for Portland, and I do think that they play tonight, so I'll have to get that up in front of me here in a second. But the Portland Trailblazers, you've got Donovan Clingan. He missed the first game, and he is questionable for tonight. Drew Holiday still not day-to-day with his right calf strain. So this team's pretty banged up. You got most of their core is your fantasy producers in this group, and a couple of them out. So we've seen Robert Williams, show up. We've seen other players from the back end of their roster show up and be productive. But by and large, we're not looking at anybody but their core players in Portland because they're really, frankly, not that good. Even some of the core players like Shaden Sharp has dealt with a calf injury, so he's been off the radar. We're not looking at Scoot Henderson or anybody like that. But Robert Williams has showed up, and it's been kind of interesting. Average of 2.6 combined defensive stats over the last 3 weeks, playing in 9 out of 11 games, averaging 16 minutes per game in that span. He got 19 minutes last night on Sunday, and he might sit tonight in the back-to-back. So again, this is not Saturday's action, and the team's not playing tonight. So my apologies. I should have covered this in the later segment. But tonight, Robert Williams might not play. It might be one where he rests. But if you're in a very deep format where you need centers and those guys are at a premium, he's actually producing. And it is a little bit of the attrition that they're facing with their core guys. If Clingan's back, he's at a mid-round value. And when Drew Holiday comes back, this team will sing. And we have seen Tamani Kamara improve his value with some of these guys out. So that's been nice. And Shaden Sharp, with this calf injury, a 7.22 minute outing off the bench, it gets one eyebrow raised. I'm not a big Shaden Sharp guy. I don't have him on any teams. I respect his game. The fantasy stat set's just not there. Calf injuries, the NBA, teams are either being super careful or we do have a calf injury epidemic of sorts. But for Shaden Sharp, we're just going to keep an eye on this. It might be the fact that they're just trying to get him back on a minutes limit, but it's not great. And if you have Shaden Sharp, you have to be thinking about a drop if this kind of stuff continues and the value in non-points formats and even standard formats just isn't there. So let's get out of Portland. Let's get to the Atlanta and Philadelphia contest here. I swear, I feel like my rundown is completely jacked up because, well, no, Philly doesn't play tonight. All right, I'm back. I'm with you guys. Atlanta and Philadelphia. This game was a double overtime thriller. I don't know if it was that exciting, but it was pretty good. Joel Embiid was out for the back-to-back, or he's going to be out for the back-to-back in the next game. He logged 30 minutes in this game. Andre Drummond, 6 minutes in what I think were rehab minutes. And I said this in the last show. I think when you don't have time for practice and you have a man that size and he's saying his knee is kind of okay, but not really, it's, hey, let's get you on the floor. Let's see what you have, and let's just be super careful about it and just kind of see where things are at. So Andre Drummond played 6 minutes. Kelly Oubre out, and I do think we'll get an update, and I'm betting this update probably keeps him out another couple weeks. But again, it's this hyperextension of the knee that, you just don't know if it's going to be a 1 day or a 3 week or a 5 week kind of a deal when you, and they also look terrible. So it's really hard to gauge. Kelly Oubre, at least a week, maybe 3 or 4 is my best guess there. And Trenton Watford, at least a week to go. So this team is really banged up. Talked about it in the first show today, but Adem Bona, 22 minutes. He actually got a block late, which saved this line. And when I say save, I'm being very liberal with the word saved. Just the 2 blocks, barely any points, barely any boards. It was like he was running away from stats. Now, the 2 games since returning from what I thought was a pretty bad ankle injury, probably still impacting him. His average 8.5 points, 4.5 boards, and 2.5 blocks. This is good for late round value. And when we're measuring a stash of Adem Bona, what we're really trying to figure out is the timing of it, is when. And if you have Andre Drummond as a center, which I've been kind of trying to get you guys to do, none of this matters. You just keep both of them. And yeah, you might have a little bit of an awkward spot where you don't know which one to play because Drummond might be back or he might not be back. And, who knows what's going on with Joel Embiid. But eventually, it's either going to be Drummond racking up big stats and Bona getting 20 minutes and maybe getting you late round value that way, or the scenario that we're all waiting for, which is Joel Embiid can't hack it. Andre Drummond is too big, too old, too much mileage, too many 30-minute games already under his belt. And Adem Bona is going to get the 25 to 30 minutes and start getting factored into the attack with Philadelphia and getting into a better rhythm with his teammates. This team has too many basketball players doing too many different things. At the same time, you've got Tyrese Maxey having to bail them out time after time after time. And by the way, that guy's averaging almost 44 minutes a game or something. This could turn into last year's Philadelphia Sixers fairly quick. So with Adem Bona, it's all about the timing of when to add him. And if you have Andre Drummond, it makes it so much easier. So if Andre Drummond gets dropped, you can add the both of them and you can have control of the entire Philadelphia front court for the rest of the season. And by the way, Joel Embiid, even if he stays on the floor this season, he's kind of terrible. Like, let's just be real. Teams are targeting him relentlessly on defense. He is a defensive liability if I have ever seen one, and that's not getting better ever again. That's not changing. There's not an act of God that can put defense into that man's DNA right now. And offensively, the team doesn't know how to play with him on the floor, and they don't really want to defer to him. It's not like the offense that he's generating is super good. He knows how to draw fouls. He can hit shots. He can run a little tempo, and that's about it. So he'll get his numbers, and teams are happy to let him shoot on the outside of the perimeter. It's a kind of a net win for teams when he's out there doing that. So I just think they're going to get out of the Joel Embiid business. And one of these injuries is going to be the one where Joel himself probably taps out and says, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. There's no point to doing it. I'm not going to get out there. I'm not going to be any better anytime soon. And I think you're seeing that frustration play out on the floor. So Philadelphia at the center position, really interesting stuff. And if you can sell Joel Embiid for anything, I mean, any active player at all that can do a thing for you, do it. Maxey, it's 41 minutes per game this season. And if this was a week ago, I wouldn't be telling you guys to sell high, I don't think. I mean, I would think that Philadelphia clearly in contention for like a top 4 to 6 playoff spot in the East. I'd say, hey, Maxey's just going to keep going out there and being an MVP candidate. But now they're 10-9, and they're relying on Andre Drummond to be a credible top 6 playoff contender in the East. This thing can fall apart, and I would prioritize, if I'm them, getting Adem Bona. This is like take the fantasy hat off and do all, that I promoted Adem Bona and all of that. It's like if I want Philly to win, I need Adem Bona to get comfortable, and I need the team to get comfortable playing with him as an undersized shot blocking center that sets kind of mediocre screens or get him to set better screens, get him into a better screening position, get some tempo in that offense, and figure out how you're going to play with the Dembona, because Andre Drummond lasting the entire season is not a great bet. Maybe you can trade into this spot. Maybe you can bolster the front court. But Tyrese Maxey, if this team is a 6 to 8 seed, plays differently than if they're a 4 to 6 seed. If they're an 8 to 10 seed, Tyrese Maxey plays differently if they're that. And if they fall any further south, this top 5 fantasy asset might be a guy that they start to rest in March and April. And that would be terrible news for folks drafting Tyrese Maxey and crushing right now in fantasy leagues. Dominic Barlow has averaged 34 minutes over the last 3 games and brought back 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.3 combined defensive stats, top 90 value in that span. I think it sucks that his position is tied to Paul George. Both these guys are going to play power forward. Doesn't feel like they want to put Dominic Barlow at center, and they do need to play up into that power forward position because of all the guards that need their minutes. So it's a little bit of a bummer, but Dominic Barlow getting it done right now, just a good thing to know, especially if they start to go into their bench down the stretch in March and April. VJ Edgecombe, my move here. I think people, they got all high on VJ Edgecombe. Lord knows I did. And then the sell high, if people didn't hit the sell high, which was right there at the beginning of the season, if they didn't hit that, they're hanging on to a depreciating asset and they're just kind of bummed out about it. And I would buy into this now because he's been playing at a top 100 to 150 level and the ball's just kind of avoiding him. And there's not enough basketballs to go around in Philadelphia right now. I would give him a week or two after this injury. I think that I think he just needs to reboot himself. He played too many minutes early on, got a little bit fatigued, then injured, and you got this logjam of guards. I think it's just kind of got him trying to figure things out right now. I think once he gets into a rhythm again, especially if you lose a player here or there, VJ Edgecombe has top 50 potential. I just don't think it's going to be there anytime in the next week or two. So you have a good week or two span to conjure up a VJ Edgecombe deal, maybe figure out a good top 100 player to toss across there and see if you can get somebody with buyer's remorse on the VJ Edgecombe side. Paul George hadn't been pretty, but it's actually been somewhat valuable. A top 80 to 90 number in his first 5 games back in 23 minutes per game. If you told me that he was going to play 23 minutes per game and how would this look in his first 5 games back, I wouldn't have a top 80 to 90 number. 14 points, just under 2 threes, 5 boards, 3.4 assists, 2 steals, 0.6 blocks. If he's going to be out there and focus on defense, that might actually be a better role for him than trying to, and I don't think he's actually going to do this, but trying to run the offense. I think he actually gets it, and I don't think he wants to go out there and embarrass himself trying to be a number 1 guy when he clearly doesn't have it anymore. And this is the problem that Philadelphia has. All right, that was at least 10 solid minutes on Philadelphia. Let's move it to Toronto at New York, which is much more simple. RJ Barrett not quite day-to-day with his knee sprain, and Jakob Poeltl probable after taking Sunday night off. Scotty Barnes continues to play back end of the first round fantasy ball. Emmanuel Quickly, a top 75 play over the last month, so he has recovered his value. On the New York side, injuries-wise, OG Anunoby's playing 3-on-3, and that is your best last chance to sell high on Mikal Bridges while he is ranked inside the top 10 in 9 cat leagues and inside the top 20 in 8 cat leagues. Mikal Bridges, I believe, has the most multi-steal and block games, or maybe the number 7. He's ranked number 7. I saw a stat floating around New York media. He's getting a lot of blocks and steals is what he's doing. He's playing the best ball of his career, but once Anunoby gets back, it's going to be hard for him to do that. I think a pretty good, optimistic measurement for Mikal Bridges would be like top 40 or something. And right now he's just crushing that. So I know people probably have some skepticism about whether he can actually hack it. Mikal Bridges, I think that overall they look at him right now and they see big fantasy numbers. And you could probably pull out of this a top 30, top 40 player with an arrow pointed up and be doing just fine there. So we will track that. And I guess they play on Tuesday. Hopefully that's the case. Otherwise, my rundown is all jacked up. Josh Hart, I would also sell high on Josh Hart. And he's actually been a top 20 to 30 value over the last 10 games. for all the consternation about Josh Hart not starting, finger injury, this, not producing, and he didn't produce in the first couple of weeks. He is back and crushing it, and he's got his old role, and he fits this Mike Brown, drive and kick and get up and down the floor. And Brown loves himself some rebounding. And this talk in the early part of the season that Hart would be the guy out didn't really add up to me. And I get it with the starters being who they are and Jalen Brunson being who he is. And it has been funny. They've kind of stopped doing as much drive and kick stuff. And I didn't think it was going to work, but Mike Brown wanted to try it, and maybe they'll move the needle a little bit. But I guarantee you when it's April and May and June, they're going to be plodding up and down the floor, and Jalen Brunson will be taking 25 shots a game. That's just going to be the way that it's going to go. But Josh Hart, sell high. Like right now, he looks great. When it gets crowded, maybe not so much. Maybe back down to top 75, top 100 ball. Josh Hart, I think he could probably get a top 60 player, top 75 player right now pretty easily. And hopefully he doesn't go big like he did a couple seasons ago and make you look bad or make me look bad as it goes. Let's get to the Boston at Cleveland matchup from over the weekend. Boston's injuries, Derek White has a calf injury, but it seems likely that he's going to go. Nemish Keita came back in a surprise return, had a big game, then missed a game, and now he's listed as probable for the next game. So Boston kind of healthy right now. Peyton Pritchard had a massive game over the weekend, 42 points, 15 of 22 shooting, all sorts of stats, 6 triples, perfect from the foul line. It pushed him back up into the top 75 in 8 cat leagues and top 100 on the season in 9 cat leagues. Kind of the ballpark of where he was drafted in fantasy leagues. I really wished I could draft Peyton Pritchard. I watched all this film in the offseason. I was like, yeah, he can do it. He's the guy. And there was other players. And so I don't have a lot of Peyton Pritchard, but he's getting closer. And this is a great outcome for him, as it just solidifies that he's not going to just disappear this season. And yeah, Jaylen Brown can take a ton of shots and the offense can be out of balance and all of the things, but Peyton Pritchard is not going to just dud out. And that's great. Derek White, for his part, he's starting to flirt with 40% shooting lately. And if he can bump that back up to 40, just even on the year, there's going to be a little bit of buy low room. Now he's been making it up on the defensive side, so I don't know if there's a give and a take there. But Derek White, I know he's a better than 40% shooter, even in this situation in Boston. He's that good of a player. I just think the early season stuff and the rotation changes and all the inconsistency for Boston is showing up in his stat line. And I believe he will bounce back. Josh Minott can't get anything going at all. And this was not that surprising. I thought this stretch of games with all these different big centers and big players that the Celtics had to play, I thought it meant that this was not the time for Josh Minott to be good. So if you saw him start when Nemish Keita got injured the second half, however many games back, and you thought maybe this is the time, well, here's a reason for that. And I just think with Josh Minott, it's as simple as this. If he's hanging out and the waiver wire doesn't look that good, you want to try to get a play on Josh Minott. You never know when the next game will be. It will be like a 1 to 2 game ramp up for Josh Minott. He will be good one game and he will, maybe I'll do this. I don't believe in it, but maybe I'll do this. The second game, he will go off and everybody will race to the wire, whoever gets him. If that indeed is the turning point for Josh Minott in the season, which is up to Joe Mazzulla, you will have a top 75 guy. It's just the way that his stat set goes. And it's the reason that people were excited about him heading into the season. So it's just luck at this point. There's not any indication at all that Josh Minott will be good in the near future. It's just going to be luck if you get him. Anthony Simons can be dropped. I just don't see him getting the volume that he needs and has needed traditionally, dating back to his days in Portland, to be a good top 80, 100 producer. And so if he's not getting the volume, he's just going to be a top 200 guy. And I think you can move on. Let's get to San Antonio at Minnesota. Now, San Antonio lost to Minnesota. There's a lot of revenge games, by the way. I don't have all of the odds up in front of me, but if I had the FanDuel odds up in front of me, you might just take a strategy of all these teams that are doing the revenge games. There's a ton of teams that have played over the weekend. They're going to play tonight or Tuesday. Just pick the team that didn't win. Blind bet it. Just as a thought bubble experiment, just do that and see if you go 5-3 or whatever the number is. It just is kind of a thing and how betting works. But as far as San Antonio, they lost to Minnesota. I got Victor Wembanyama out for at least another week, maybe more. Stephon Castle basically day-to-day, left hip flexor strain. So getting healthy, San Antonio. And De'Aaron Fox has settled into his top 20 to 30 value, so that's great. This is now over 11 games. He is what he is, and this is why we had him ranked so high, and hopefully he just keeps going. Sunday, we saw Harrison Barnes and Julian Champagnie. They dudded out. It was Keldon Johnson as the big winner with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 steals. This whole group's in trouble, and it's not just Victor Wembanyama's return. It's just too many players. It's Dylan Harper back, Castle back. I think Devin Vassell, who had another big night on Sunday. I mean, you should sell high with Vassell. This is just an easy sell high call. 22 points, 3 assists, 2 steals. He's gotten his value back into the top 85 to 105 range, 33 minutes a game. Not a lot of upside here. If you lose out on a Devin Vassell late round value season, you're not going to be crying. See what you could get there. But all these guys, and I think actually the new pecking order is basically going to be Stephon Castle returning to his spot, and his swings are going to be wild. And I do think the return of Fox will make the swings a little less wild and keep the turnover number down. And it'll probably make these numbers, instead of being a top 108 cat leagues and a top 209 cat leagues, Castle will probably go to something like maybe like 90 in 8 cat leagues and 130 in 9 cat leagues. But the big kind of blow up lines for Castle, I think they're going to be there. And you might get top 75 out of him on the 8 cat side. Harper, I think, is just cruising around as a late round value. They're going to give him minutes. They're going to give him opportunities. He is really good. He's going to be productive. And if anybody gets hurt, I think he's definitely capable of stepping up into that void and joining Stephon Castle as a potential top 75 in a best case, but like a 100. And even on the 9 cat side, just kind of keeping it in the top 100 range. I think that is possibly in store for Dylan Harper this season, but just count him out as a late round value. Castle a tiny bit ahead of him. And then the rest of these guys, I think they're all players that you can cut. Luke Cornett probably also fits the bill. Now, he had a decent little Luke Cornett line, 6 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block to stay on that deep league radar. Just top 140 to 165 value on the season. I think Victor Wembanyama's return will actually help solidify his value at least a little bit, but it'll probably be in that range right there. As for Minnesota, they're fully healthy. Anthony Edwards looking like he's in chill mode, just top 20 value. Nothing really concerning. Nothing, he's going to get, I think, some of Julius Randle's value. And I think he's just kind of waiting. It's a long season. And he did this last year. And I think he'll have a push in like March, to try to get his name in some MVP talk and basically just demolish is probably the game plan there for him. Julius Randle, he has been sliding. When he was a first round value, I was preaching from the top of the mountain for you guys to sell high. He just gave you another good game to do that with. It might be the last good game, great game that is, to do that with. 22 points, 9 of 15 shooting, 6 rebounds, 12 assists, 1 steal, 2 triples. He's been hanging around the top 100 the past 2 weeks, suffering from all the bad peripherals we've seen plenty of in the past. The numbers as a whole are just a little bit up across the board. These inefficiencies in his game, they can send his value from 30, which is what it is on the season, more toward like 50 really, really quick. And if Julius Randle finishes as a top 50 value on the season, that's actually a pretty good season for him. He's had issues with percentages and low defensive numbers and turnovers, and it's taken his value into the 100 range and the 150 and 9 cat. So if he's a 50, this is actually a great season for him. It's kind of made the trade to Minnesota, even though it hasn't put them in contention, and they've got all sorts of issues with that in general and what they chose to do with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert before that. None of that's good. It wasn't smart. It's all bad. And they don't have a chance with Julius Randle as their number 2. They just don't. But for him personally, if he does that and if he finishes as a top 50 guy, that's a successful season as far as I'm concerned. And what I'm telling you right now is, while people are still looking at second round numbers and seeing these big stat lines, and Ant is giving Randle a little bit of extra berth right now. Naz Reid, heating up, but it hasn't really hit the numbers that much. And Cat, top 25-ish, top 30-ish, not really, or pardon me, not Cat. Switching my players around right there. It's good for Julius Randle right now. It's not going to be good for him all season long. So I think you sell high on a top 30 level here. I just put Cat back on Minnesota. What am I doing today? Naz Reid, top 80 after starting the season in the 125 to 150 range. He's a top 100 play on the season. This is more Naz Reid's pace. Let's get to Memphis at Sacramento. So Memphis just crushes Sacramento. The score was way closer than the game played out. You had Zach Edey out there taking candy from babies, 32 points, 17 boards, 5 blocks. Talk about the ultimate sell high position right now. Zach Edey, a top 20 player, I think, without looking that up right now in his 8-game sample. The questions will be, is he a top 50 guy? And I think people will actually, because he's new, and Zach Edey's been a guy we've talked about in the past. It's like, is Zach Edey that good? It might even look and say, is it top 50 or is it top 40? I was thinking top 75 earlier prior to this Sacramento game and kind of like hesitating. Like he's got injury risk and there's all sorts of reason you should sell high for that reason alone. But like, is he really a top 75 guy or is he just having a fast start? Well, Sacramento came in and just made this completely easy for you guys. I think you definitely take back a top 75 player and just call it a day. You don't have to deal with the injury risk and whether Zach Edey can actually be a top 75 guy playing on a team that may eventually get Ja Morant back, may eventually see Jaren Jackson decide to play basketball. I don't know, but this is just a great sell high position for Zach Edey. As for injuries, it's just Ja Morant right now with his right calf strain, and we'll probably do an update here pretty soon. Santi Aldama has been great for the last 3 weeks, top 55 to 80 ball. This is kind of why we had him high in the B150, 27 minutes per game. His season-long value now at 100 in 9 cat leagues and 120 in 8 cat leagues. And I think he's probably got another gear in terms of an overall per game season ranking. So good stuff there for Santi. Talked a lot about Cedric Coward today. Another mundane low-end line, 10 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, no cash counting stats at all. This is brutal. His first month on the job, amazing. He was hitting like 75% of his shots. The last 15 games, he's been outside of the top 200, just 0.6 combined defensive stats, 40% from the field in that span. It's like he's a shooting guard out there right now. And I need to like get on the film and really dig in and figure out why is Cedric Coward not getting defensive stats. It just seems like with his body type that he should be capable of getting more defensive stats. And that's going to be a big deal for his dynasty values. So ask Mark Camaro about all that. Jaren Jackson, just 1 cash counting stat in 34 minutes. Now, I'm not going to slam the effort against Sacramento, which they're playing Maxine Reynaud and they're playing Drew Eubanks. Neither of these guys look like they should be on the floor right now, by the way. So do they care? Did Jaren Jackson care in this game? But it's been all season long. He's barely around the top 100. He's got just 1.1 blocks per game. He's either hurt or pissed off. And if it's not one of those two things, his career is about to fall off the side of a cliff. And he is owed a lot of money over the next few seasons. So I hope he's either hurt or pissed off because otherwise it's over for Jaren Jackson Jr. That is brutal what he's done this season. I hope he's pissed off, actually. That's the one I'm rooting for. The downside for Vince Williams showed itself. He missed all 8 of his shots, had just 7 assists and 1 steal to prop up a 27-minute box score. It's basically the 10 assists per game are great. Everything else is crap for him. 30.9% from the field shooting. And he's got deficiencies in 8 categories. And love Vince Williams. Do not love what I'm seeing across the board outside of the assist category. And you do have players that are eventually going to return. So I will pass as far as hopping on the train here. As for Sacramento, my favorite basketball team, Domantas Sabonis out for a few more weeks with his knee injury. Dennis Schroeder missed the first game and is questionable for the next game, which is on Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday. That's correct. I can read a schedule. Keegan Murray has been a first-round guy since returning. That's interesting. I'm definitely not saying this is going to continue. He's doing it a variety of ways. 18 points, 1.7 threes, 7 boards, a couple of assists, 2.2 steals, and 1.3 blocks. Good efficiency because he's Keegan Murray. These numbers will come back. The steals will come back. It's asking him too much to be both good on offense and also get that many steals. The blocks probably coming back. But who knows? I mean, the Kings haven't really ever let this guy loose, and dependent upon how they play him, if they play him at center a little bit, maybe these defensive numbers aren't that far off. I mean, they are coming back no matter what. But this is the Keegan Murray that we've been waiting for, man. It is top 40 material in this configuration, and the fact that the Kings have gone out and said he's going to be the guy. Now, I got a little over my skis saying DeMar DeRozan, understood the assignment. There's certain things that DeMar DeRozan can't do, and that's he can't not shoot. That's something he can't not do. He has to do it. It's when he's on the floor, he's just like a dog chasing the postman. He's like, I'm going to shoot, and that's going to be that. So he's kind of going back and forth, and I think DeMar is going to be mostly in line with what the organization wants, and he's on his way out anyway. So it's going to be a little bit tough for him to just chuck at the rates he's accustomed to chucking, and there will be Keegan, and Keegan will be good. And Keegan's just going to do this for the rest of the season, and it will be up and down, and there'll be some dumb stuff that happens. But Keegan Murray, if he doesn't finish with a rest of season per game value in the top 50 range, I would consider that an upset at this point. So at least in Sacramento, basketball hell, Keegan Murray will be a good fantasy play, I think. And there's nothing that Vivek Ranadive can do to stop that. Zach LaVine, really super interesting because aside from not being where he needs to be in fantasy leagues, he's taking hits locally at a rate faster than we thought could be possible. I mean, nobody likes his contract. Nobody thought it was a good idea for him to be traded for. And he got put into, frankly, an unfair position, replacing De'Aaron Fox, being the centerpiece of a bad trade. But he's not playing defense, and a fan got ejected, and it was a pretty noteworthy fan locally. And he took his case to social media after the game a couple days later. And basically, he told Zach LaVine he needed to play defense, and Zach LaVine fired back. And then they started talking trash to each other. Well, here's the thing. Zach LaVine, you don't play defense. You deserved every piece of criticism that dude gave you. I mean, your approach to defense is pretty damn lazy. And when you try to crank it up and play defense, you don't have the instincts and you don't have the habits to actually get in there and play defense. So, yeah, you're going to take hits, and it's just going to suck. And if I was the Kings and if I was Zach LaVine, I would be doing anything humanly possible to get him out, even if you got to take on some bad asset money in the deal, because it's screwing up your entire developmental effort to have Zach LaVine on the basketball floor. So Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, they need to go if you're Sacramento. And I don't care if you don't like Malik Monk, for whatever reason you don't like Malik Monk. I don't know what it is. Dude plays hard. He's a gamer. He cares. And maybe there's other reasons, but who knows? Who cares? And he got loose in Sunday's game, 21 points, 6 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and a triple in 34 minutes. The team's just better with him on the floor, and you get Domantas Sabonis back, who's pretty much untradeable as well. And those two play well together in a pick and roll. Now you're playing basketball. Great stuff. Keon Ellis, 6 minutes. All the past commentary applies. Keon Ellis, I mean, we've talked about this for ages. There's nothing new here. But there is one thing that's a little bit new, and it's how badly has this franchise screwed up Keon Ellis's development. About 18 to 24 months ago, they were giving him point guard reps. They were kind of giving him the ball and seeing what they could do late in the season before last. And now he's kind of afraid to do anything because he knows he's going to be benched. And when he gets out there now, he's got to try really hard and kind of overextend himself to, make Vivek like him or something. I don't know. Let's get out of that mess. Let's get to a different mess in New Orleans, where they played the Los Angeles Lakers over the weekend. Trey Murphy missing a pair of games with right elbow soreness kind of out of nowhere. That wasn't cool. He's questionable for the next game. Zion's questionable in general. Herbert Jones, not yet day-to-day with his right calf strain. Jordan Poole could get an update basically anytime. I feel like he's kind of ready to go. Jose Alvarado, questionable with his hamstring injury. So what are we doing here? We're talking about Derek Queen, of course. Lost a lot of momentum this last week. Good staying power after a 2.3 rebound game against Golden State. That could have been the drop game. If that's happened, stop what you're doing right now. Just go pick him up. He is my top waiver wire play of the week. Not like, he's not. I'm excited about Derek Queen. I'm just not excited about Derek Queen, the player, I guess. Defense, effort. These are the things he's got to work on. Conditioning. But even in bad games, even in lower minutes, he's going to get you numbers. 15.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 7 of 8 from the foul line, 28 minutes in last night's game. In the 4 really bad games, if we want to call these last 4 really bad games, 21 minutes, 9 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.3 combined defensive stats. Somehow in this chaotic, 2 rebound, 3 assist game, segment here, he managed to keep it in the top 185. That's a sign of a good fantasy play. It knocked the last 3 weeks, which are the best 3 weeks for him this season. It knocked this segment down to a top 90 to 120 value in 8 and 9 cat leagues, respectively, inside your late round value, which you need in most standard formats. It's a 27-minute sample. It's got all sorts of kind of goodies, 14 and 7, 4.5 assists, and 2 combined defensive stats. And as I mentioned in the last show, he gets challenged constantly. Relentlessly. So he's going to luck his way into some steals and blocks, and that's going to be very good for his value. At one point, I thought top 50 rest of season was in play. Theoretically, it could be. If they turn the page and he kind of gets his conditioning in play, and if he can kind of just get some defensive stuff figured out. And it's not like he doesn't have the mind for it. He clearly sees the game faster than most players. And sometimes players can only do that on one side of the floor. But defensively, I have noticed that he can kind of, in a certain region, be smarter, faster. He has some good strength. He has good hands. He's got a little bit of quickness. He's not like dead on arrival. If he can take the 50% of plays where he is dead on arrival, and he can cut that down to 25 or just get somewhat better and not be such a mark and get the conditioning in play. And some of this, I believe, is conditioning. Remember, the preseason wasn't that great for him. Just starting to get back after a few games into the regular season. So he's a little bit behind. Some of these back-to-back games, you've noticed almost an intentional minute reduction for him. So I think some of it is all baked into the same cake here. But if he can get defense and effort and consistency, I think top 50 is in play. Maybe we should be aiming for top 75 here. But top 90 or 100, I think that's a virtual guarantee, making him a must-add player if he is dropped in your fantasy leagues. And then we'll just plug our nose and hope for the best. Saddiq Bey still on a heater over the last 4 games, 36 minutes per game, 20 points, 10 boards, 3 assists, 2.3 combined defensive stats, 3 triples per game. We love it. He does this all the time and then he disappears. But top 90 over the last 3 weeks, you can't argue with that. I am concerned Jordan Poole is going to come back and there's going to be all sorts of weirdness about who does what and when and how. Trey Murphy still kind of on the outside looking in saying, hey, this is my team. This has been an interesting start for New Orleans, and we'll see what a Jordan Poole addition does to that. And then I'm going to be interested to see if Jordan Poole has more zip on his fastball after this time off. Watching him play, it just didn't seem like it was working out. And was that the quad, or was that just Jordan Poole being Jordan Poole and New Orleans being New Orleans? The situation for him has actually worsened. Jeremiah Fears is better than people thought he would be to start the season. Saddiq Bey is better than people thought he would be to start the season. And nobody knew what they were getting out of Derek Queen. So he's stepping into a worse situation. And at the same time, if this quad injury was holding him back, and that was the only thing holding him back, it's entirely possible he gets a full usage role. So I'm curious, can you guys flip a top 100 player and get him? Can one of you out there do that? I want to know if it's possible, because if you can, you might have top 50 on the other side. And at this point, I'm kind of not liking a bet on Jordan Poole to be a top 75 player, but I do think he'll be a top 100 player when on the floor. So you might just have a 0 risk, all upside move to make a play at a guy who a lot of people like to hate on, and it just doesn't look good for him right now. And a lot of other players are doing their thing. As for Fears, I can't stick with him inside the top 150. I think he's going to be on just the outside of the top 150 for the foreseeable future. Like the player, don't like the fantasy game. And we move on to teams playing tonight. Hopefully I have this portion of my rundown accurate. That's the goal for this segment, is accuracy. Milwaukee at Washington. Milwaukee's got Giannis probable. Kevin Porter Jr.'s back. Had a nice game in the last one. 13 points, 3 triples, 4 boards, 6 assists, 5 cash counters, 24 and a half minutes. I love it. Kevin Porter is, to me, a top 60 player going forward, regardless of what's going on with Giannis. If Giannis goes and it's him and Ryan Rollins, or as Doc would tell me in my learning days, he and Ryan Rollins, I think they're just going to coexist, and Porter could be a top 40 guy at that point. Rollins will be a top 75 guy. Right now, Rollins is the one I'm more concerned about. He's sitting on 4 games of just top 75 to 115 value in 8 and 9 cat leagues, respectively. Big minutes, 36 minutes, 15 points, 5 boards, 5.5 assists, 2 steals. Just 40% shooting, though, on 14.5 attempts. His season-long shooting is in the high 40s. And this, to me, was the primary concern with Ryan Rollins, was the field goal percentage. And now he's going to play possibly on a bad team. And maybe, he gets the big ramp without Giannis later in the year. But right now it's Giannis, KPJ, and Ryan Rollins. That sell high position is about to evaporate. Ryan Rollins is going to be a top 75 guy going forward. That'll be your good case scenario. Other than that, it might slide down to 100, but I don't think he's going much lower than that. I do think that the value will be there, and it probably will help him out to have somebody else on the floor that can handle the rock, and he won't take so many hand grenade shots, and he won't be kind of struggling as much as he has had to struggle, though his shooting percentage hasn't reflected that on the season. He's been very good. These last 4 games, though, I think are closer to reality. So Ryan Rollins, that sell high position is almost evaporated. Bobby Portis flamed out. 4 games at 22 minutes in the top 200 range. Miles Turner around the bottom of the top 100 this week. Bad efficiencies, 14 points, 2 threes, 6 boards, 2 blocks. It's, top 50, 75 on the season for Turner, with Giannis missing 6 games. Kevin Porter basically missing all of them. I have my concerns about Turner entering the year because I just think Milwaukee's kind of a dumpster fire. And I would be trying to move Miles Turner, even though there are some ways that he can maybe negotiate his way in a post-Giannis scenario as the quote guy, the veteran, the focal point, and these other 2 guards playing off of him. Maybe Miles Turner is able to make me and or you look bad in that scenario. But I think on the bigger picture here, Miles Turner being in sort of a funky bad season, I think that's a possibility. So I would be trying to get out from under Miles Turner if I could. Washington, Alex Sarr, questionable now. Maybe even all the way out. I believe he's out tonight, actually. So Alex Sarr out. Chris Middleton, questionable because he's old. Corey Kispert out for a couple of weeks. Trey Johnson out for a couple of weeks. Well, aside from the constant Tristan Vukcevic discussion going on in my head, we'll basically say this about Vukcevic is, I don't think they're going to give him a role early on, even if Alex Sarr is out. I think 20 minutes is kind of the peak for what they will do there. What I think will happen with Vukcevic is he will continue to earn those minutes. He will continue to prove his worth as the season goes on. And then whatever happens with Alex Sarr, you'll probably find that they play these 2 guys together a little bit more than they would have in the first few months of the season. Keep Vukcevic at 15 to 20 minutes as a baseline. And eventually we're going to see Vukcevic out there playing 25, 27, 29 minutes per game. The question's when. And I don't think it's anytime soon. So you don't got to worry about Vukcevic, and you don't got to worry about Justin Champagnie at this point. They're not ready to turn that page. When they do, I'll be sure to let you know. And you guys know I will. But in the meantime, Bilal Coulibaly, I think this is the window for him. He's a 27-minute guy right now, 10 games on the season, all over the injury report, just top 160 to 175 value during that span. A 111, 10 points, 4 boards, 3 assists. It's just the bad percentages that are dropping this value. He needs more minutes and he needs more consistency. And I think these 2 injuries could be the thing that makes that happen. I think he's rostered in a lot of places, but there is fatigue surrounding Bilal Coulibaly. And I think he could either be available or he could be had for a song. And you want to try to do that before this week, because I do think this week is the week that he will pick it up. CJ McCollum, probably if you subtract his massive games, he's a total net loss on the season. But because of the massive games, he's a top 125 to 140 value on the season. 18 points, 3 triples, 3 boards, 3 assists, and not much else. Classic CJ McCollum. Keyshawn George, top 55 to 90 in 31 minutes per game. A little bit slow, some illness stuff, but basically right exactly where we want him. I think that the turnovers will normalize a little bit. It's hard to say that on a bad team, but I think Keyshawn George, mid-round value, B150 darling, and possible one of the possible draft pickups of the year. Sar, if he's healthy, a top 45 level and cooking, but man, that injury stuff is risky with him. And it's risky in the insidious way because they want him to play. He's a young player. He's had injury issues. It's Washington. You just kind of don't know what's what out there with him. He is, if he has calf issues or if they're just completely tanking and they just want to be super safe with him again, that's the stuff that gives you heartburn if you're enjoying the top 45 production out of Alexander Sarr right now. Let's get to Cleveland at Indiana. No shortage of things to talk about on the Indiana side. Cleveland, Darius Garland, I believe he's out for the back-to-back. Jared Allen, about a week. Lonzo Ball, probable. Larry Nance, out. Evan Mobley, everybody, hit all 7 of his free throws last week. We should give him a round of applause. It pushed him all the way up to the top 10 in a small sample size. I think it's a good time to float the buy low offers. I don't think he fixed his free throw. Let's be clear. But maybe he can be a streaky free throw shooter that when the ups and the downs, they all get evened out. Maybe Evan Mobley is better than terrible. But if he's terrible from the foul line, there are going to be a lot of second round draft picks and a lot of third round, but second round, especially drafters out there, me included, everybody included. I mean, I was a little bit out ahead on Evan Mobley. All the numbers are for the most part fine. It's this free throw shooting is brutal. His field goal shooting isn't much. It's better, but it's not much better. These two things have to improve. And Mobley probably out there chucking a little bit, but the free throw, man, if he can't get that figured out, it's a high volume, about 6 per game, and he needs to be a lot better from there. If not, it's going to be a top 50 season, and people are going to be bummed out. Jalen Tyson continuing to be great. He had 6 of 18 shots. I thought that was interesting. 5 of 12 from deep. So he's definitely getting the ball. He's commanding a presence on both sides of the ball. 2 steals and 2 blocks in this game on Sunday. A top 75 player in 9 cat leagues, a top 105 player in 8 cat leagues. He's done it every single night. He's been on the floor practically, just 26.4 minutes per game on the season. This is must roster territory and almost must add territory, as in drop the last player on your roster, because Jalen Tyson has no impediments to his value. I mean, maybe Max Strus comes back at some point and screws with him a little bit. But at that point, I think Jalen Tyson has defense on him. And offensively, it's not that much of a loss, even if you want to call it a loss. Jalen Tyson, good basketball player and must roster player. On the Indiana side, Aaron Nesmith probably getting an update here pretty soon. If you want to stash Aaron Nesmith, dependent upon your needs, league size, etc., a good time to do that is right before the update. All the guards are back, so that's good news. Obi Toppin's still out for a very long time. Benedict Mathurin has leveled out as a top 100 to 150 play. He looks a lot like past versions. Defensive stat problems, the additional volume hurting the 9-cat side of the equation. So with Mathurin, the question's always been, can he get enough volume to get up and over the top 100 to the top 170, probably the top 75 level of the ranks? He's not doing that, and he's not getting the versatility that we need. So it's a little bit disappointing, but it is early, and he is coming off injury. So we'll probably give him another 5 to 10 games before we put a fork in Mathurin as advancing into the upside that people have always wanted him to have. Jay Huff, he has rehabbed his overall season value to 165 and 180 in just 17 minutes. Okay, so this is all classic Huff, right? The last month, top 100 to 125 over 10 games, 20 minutes per game. Give the guy an extra 2.2 minutes per game and watch him cook. 9 points, 2 triples, 4 boards, 2.6 blocks, 0.9 turnovers a game. Okay, not all minutes are created equally. The minutes that he's getting now are minutes with the point guards. It's about the point guards. I've been telling you guys this for weeks. It's about the point guards. Without the point guards, they all suck. It's a top 50 to 60 sample over the last 7 games in 22 minutes per game. Heaven forbid you give Jay Huff 22 minutes per game. 11 points, 2.1 triples, under 5 boards, 3 blocks, 49% shooting from the field, which means this is kind of duplicatable. It's not like he's shooting 60% and on some massive heater. Yeah, he's shooting well, but this, as long as he can stay on the floor, as long as Indiana can deliver him the ball in the flow of an offense that's actually got some integrity and some consistency and some threat, he's a guy, he can be a poor man's version of Miles Turner. And with the stat set and how quickly he gets his production, hell, he might even have more value. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think calling Jay Huff a late round value for the rest of the season feels to me like a 60-70% chance. That's great math, because if he does get 26 minutes per game, watch out, world. Isaiah Jackson's been better the last 2 weeks, 9 points, 5 boards, 2.6 combined defensive stats, 21 minutes per game. I don't think he's getting any better than late round value, but look, if he can be a consistent late round guy, that's kind of what we thought would happen at the beginning of the season. So interesting stuff there. I've been begging you guys to buy low on Pascal Siakam. I realize this is easier said than done. I think in roto leagues where the percentages were crushing people and Indiana profiling like a team that's not going to get any better with that, he has delivered 52.6 from the field in the last 7 games since the point guards have returned. So Pascal Siakam was getting you numbers one way or another anyway. If he can do it relatively efficiently, you're talking about a top 20, 30 player. And I do believe he settles in at top 40 rest of season. Jarris Walker also found his touch. Yay. 48% shooting over the last 7 games, 10 points, 2 triples, 5 boards. It's otherwise pedestrian numbers. I can't really get behind a Jarris Walker kind of takeover or that he's going to be a top 75 guy. Yes, he might have the world's biggest shooting regression ever because he was shooting under 30% on a lot of volume for a long time to start the season. It's theoretically possible. I don't think he's that guy. And I don't think with Obi Toppin coming back at some point that you're excited about his playoff run. And it's the Pacers, so we just don't know what's going to be what. If these guys get injured again, it all comes crashing down. So I'm not racing to the wire to get Jarris Walker, but it's worth noting he might have late round in him going forward. TJ McConnell, top 90 to 105 over the last 7 games in 20 minutes per game, 11 points, 2.2 combined cash counting stats, all the TJ McConnell stuff. It's TJ McConnell. He's healthy. Go get him. Atlanta at Detroit, injuries. Well, they all played 44 to 47 minutes, so they might not be playing by the time this thing, by the time this show gets wrapped up. So we'll keep an eye on that. Kristaps Porzingis questionable with an illness. Luke Kennard questionable. Zach Risache is not even on the injury report, but he feels like he's been injured all season long. And then Trae Young another couple weeks before we get an update there. It's gonzo right now. I mean, Jalen Johnson, like it just felt like every time the ball bounced somewhere, Jalen Johnson was there to get it, to shoot it, to pass it, to block it, to steal it. He's hitting free throws now. He's been a top 10 to 15 play on the season. Everything's coming up Jalen Johnson right now. And I think the free throw shooting is huge for him. Don't get me wrong. Like the fact that he's up there shooting with confidence, this has been an issue for him in the past. I don't want to put these issues to bed. I also don't want to underplay the return of Trae Young. I do think this is a very big issue for this team. And the fact that they didn't give him the extension and the fact that they're winning without him, it puts more pressure on this convergence of, is this Trae Young's team or is it everybody else's team? I bet the players feel pretty confident that if Trae Young doesn't play, that they can produce and they can win. And that's what they've done. And so we'll see how this all goes. But the fact that Jalen Johnson is a top 10 to 15 play and Young is coming back and he's a buy the book, sell high, I think we split the difference with this. I don't think you get rid of Jalen Johnson for anything outside of the top 20. And that's probably fair. If you want to get out from underneath the Jalen Johnson injury risk, which is a thing, though maybe he's past this. I mean, you can't call him an injury risk for the next 5 seasons, just like blanket statement. Yeah, this guy's never going to have 70 plus games. He's young. It's got to happen at some point. Maybe this is the year. So at any rate, I'm not going to get rid of Jalen Johnson for outside of the top 20 value. And if you want to do that inside of the top 20, you get a top 15 player in return and you don't feel bad about injury risk, that might be worth it. So keep that in mind as you evaluate. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, top 55 to 65 on the season. He's in a sell high posture. I probably put the evaluation at the 75 to 80 range there. Onyeka Okongwu, top 60, probably the same thing for him. Dyson Daniels, top 65 to 75 right now. This one's really interesting. If Dyson Daniels continues to be afraid of shooting the ball, this is his new value, regardless of the steals and the stats being a little bit down on the defensive side. So Dyson Daniels, a second or third round or fifth round, depending on your draft pick, kind of at the bottom of what he is, potentially going to finish with this season. So is he a sell high? Is he a buy low? He's probably a buy low. I bet you people are looking at his numbers right now and saying, these suck and Trey's coming back. In this next week or two, you probably have a possibility of getting a Dyson Daniels for a top 75 player. And again, I do think that's the bottom of his production going forward. And at some point in time, he'll get confidence. Like, it happens. Like, the NBA non-shooting bunch eventually gets some confidence. You know, if they're not totally non-shooters, they eventually get some confidence, and Dyson Daniels will eventually get some confidence out there. On the Detroit side, talked a ton about Dennis Jenkins. We'll get into that here in a second, but quickly, Jalen Duren, probable, I believe, for his lower left leg contusion. Karis LeVert, I believe, also probable. I had them as questionable when I made this last night. So keep an eye out on the injury report there. I think you're kind of in the clear if you were concerned about Jalen Duren having a longer-term injury. We'll watch that for him because he's been an injury guy in the past and a very important piece for what Detroit's trying to accomplish there. Let's talk about Jenkins, and we'll do that by talking about Cade Cunningham, because Cade Cunningham now bringing back top 15 to 25 value on the season. Incredible numbers, 29 points, 10 assists, 6 boards, 4 cash counting stats, 45.6% from the field. He got that figured out, 22 attempts per game. That's not helping, but hey, it's high volume scoring at 45+% level. So we'll give him his props. 81.5% from the foul line on 8 attempts per game. Now the turnovers are a little bit out of control. And that's really what we've been seeing here as Detroit's finally started losing some games. He's had 5 turnovers per game in his last 6 games. Okay. And in Saturday's win over Miami, he almost lost a 15-point lead by just getting tunnel vision and not seeing teammates and all of the things. Well, eventually they would put Dennis Jenkins in, and that gave them the balance they needed. And Jenkins made the big bucket, driving on Bam Adebayo, of all people, with an incredible drive and finish, sealing the game. And this is the answer for Detroit. Now, there's a saying that the money plays. There's a saying that, the contracts play. And that's what's going on in Detroit. You got Jaden Ivey. Dennis Jenkins is better than Jaden Ivey right now. Done. Over. Jaden Ivey's got the blue chip draft status. And yeah, he's got a knee injury. And it's, kind of on the outs for Jaden Ivey. And Jaden Ivey hasn't really hit the top gear in Detroit. We'll put it like that. Right now, Dennis Jenkins is better than him. And it's more of a compliment to Dennis Jenkins than it is a takeaway from Ivey. Ivey, I've had a lot of respect for his game, and the injury is just kind of bad for his stock overall. Now you got to get both these guys on the floor, but you need to get Ivey on the floor, and you need to get him back in a return to play progression, and you got to keep all these other players happy. You got to keep the Karis LeVerts of the world happy, and you got to keep the Duncan Robinson of the world happy. And it's like, wait, what? We got to keep these guys happy? Well, no, you don't. You don't have to keep those guys happy. If Dennis Jenkins is the only player on your team that can turn a corner and get into the paint, a la Cade Cunningham, but do it even quicker and with more penetration than Cade Cunningham, you got to have him on the floor. And he can hold his own defensively. So basically the move here and what I'm telling everybody to do is just ignore these next couple weeks. It's going to take a while for them to figure it out. Maybe JB Bickerstaff figured it out over the weekend. When that team lost their way, he put Dennis Jenkins in the game, and Dennis Jenkins delivered. I think JB knows the score of the game. I just think that he's not willing to elevate Jenkins yet until either injury forces him to, or they lose, which is what happened the other night. If they're losing and he's going to have to lose a game because Jenkins isn't on the floor, I think that's where he draws the line. And I think he sent a message to everybody in the organization. Hey, when the chips are down, I'm going to Jenkins. So why don't we do this earlier? So anyway, it's going to take a couple weeks for them to figure it out. He's just outside of the top 200 over his last 7 games in 16 minutes per game. So he gets you production in 16 minutes per game. A 22-minute sample has him inside the late rounds at 115 to 130. And he just needs 30 minutes is my projection for him to be a top 75 player. And I think for this team with their offensive needs, they need him on the floor for at least 25 to be the best version of themselves that they can be. Elsewhere, I think we've witnessed the peak for Duncan Robinson. This might also be a reason that Dennis Jenkins gets in. He's fallen back into the bottom of the top 150 as the shooting has soured into the 35% range. Elsewhere, Jalen Duren, top 35 on the season, starting to pop up on the injury report. That to me feels a little sell high. I really love what he's done with his basketball game. And I'm not dying to get off the Jalen Duren ride just yet, but it's just something that's on my mind. So I figured I would say it. I think it's buy low territory for Asar Thompson. I just don't think it's going to hit this year. And I feel like something's been stolen from us. It feels like there's a player that deserves to ascend beyond 12.6 boards, 3 assists, 2.7 cash counting stats isn't anything to write home about. 52% from the foul line is bad. At least the volume's down there. It's down to 3 attempts per game. I mean, we can bag on the foul shooting all we want, but there's no growth in rebounds, assists, steals, or blocks. And that's supposed to be his calling card. I mean, there's some regression built in here, but the buzz around Thompson had him going in the top 50 and 60, and it just feels like he has no chance at that right now. I would say the upside for him is in the top 75 range, and I don't even know if it's worth a buy low here because of the name, and I think people are going to just chase that bet. So we'll watch and see how that all pans out. Let's get to Chicago at Orlando. A bunch of lower level injuries right now in Chicago. Nothing truly worth mentioning, but I'll rattle them off. Jalen Smith, Isaac Okoro, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, and Noah Senge, all questionable. Kobe White out. Probably not out. That was Darius Garland. Kobe White probable, getting back into the flow of things after being out to start the year. Hopefully Giddey and Vucevic are on the right track. Modest Baselis was productive in his last game on Saturday. 11 rebounds, 1 steal, 3 blocks, 2 triples. So he got you the stats that we would like to see out of Baselis. Rebounding's been an issue. 11 boards is music to our ears. Only produced in the top 120 to 125 range on the season, 28 minutes per game. If he takes the proverbial step forward, he's probably going to produce in the top 50 range just by being on the floor the rest of the way this season. So I think that is probably the key storyline here. Even not missing a game this season, he's at the top 80, of the cumulative rank. So if you drafted him in the 5th round, and I didn't really take him in the 5th round, I only took him in one kind of a mess around league. And so I don't have him anywhere. And I was pretty high at the very end of the preseason on Baselis after finally getting some film work in and just seeing where he was at and just feeling like, yeah, man, this guy's about to take off. I still didn't get him. But Billy Donovan isn't about to just give it to him. And so I think you're in for top 75 if you buy low on Baselis, kind of no matter what. And if you can get him for a top 75 player, it feels like you will be just dealing with profit margin on that deal. And the hope will be that Billy Donovan turns the page at some point in time this season and says, hey, I want you out there for 30 minutes a game. I want to see you with max usage or something in the ballpark of max usage for him as a player. And we got to see what we have in you. And at that point in time, maybe you get something really nice for Modest Baselis on a guy that a quarter of the way through the season, I don't think anybody's happy that they drafted him. So interesting stuff there. Trey Jones, a couple of good games last week. I think he might have late round value the rest of the way, but both he, Kevin Huerter, Jalen Smith, I think that they probably are 150 to 175, or in the case of Smith, 175 to 200 the rest of the way. In fact, if I had to pick somebody from this team that's not the obvious group of fantasy plays, I would probably take Ayo Dosunmu, who I think will be a cut better. Josh Giddey needs to hit more free throws so he can get into the range that he was drafted in. Otherwise, everything's good to go there. On the Orlando side, Paolo Banchero, doubtful with his groin injury. Everybody else is healthy. Desmond Bane, his season-long value, just top 90 to 100. But he's been a top 40 producer over the last 10 games. A lot of that with Banchero out. More or less baseline numbers. He's on a heater from the foul line, 96.2% over 5 attempts per game in that span. So that number's coming down. I think a lot of the numbers for him are going to normalize in different directions. I think the popcorn stats are down. I think the free throw will come back, and I think the field goal will go up. And I think what we've got is a pretty good baseline scenario for what to expect for Bane if things are going well. The part that I predicted that I have not seen and I'm frankly concerned about is what happens when Paolo Banchero comes back and A, things get worse for Bane, but B, in this scenario where I think he can be better than top 40, they're going to need to realize that if Bane doesn't go big on a nightly basis, they don't become the team they need to be. He provides the outside shooting and the paint penetration with a head up. Franz Wagner and Banchero, they can get downhill with the best of them. But can they do it with their head up and see the other players on the floor? They get assists because they got the ball in their hands a lot, and there's going to be open passes for their kind of style of play. But teams aren't worried about that. And with Bane, they will be worried about that. So if Paolo Banchero realizes that, shifts his style of play in order to maximize Desmond Bane, that's what I see. And I know for a fact that Orlando, based on what they bet, they believe that Bane needs to be good. And they're beating their head against the wall trying to get Paolo Banchero to figure out how to get Bane into the right places and maximize Bane. My bet was the fact that they would figure that out halfway through the season. We'll see if they do. Let's get to Jalen Suggs. He's fun because he's getting you top 50 value in 24 minutes per game. All sorts of fun stats there. And then you got Wendell Carter Jr. and Goga Bitadze hanging around the top 100 over the past 2 weeks. Tristan Da Silva fell off a wagon, but Goga just smooth with a steal and a block like every single night. It plays in deep leagues, and that's about it. Charlotte at Brooklyn, you got Pat Connaughton out for a few games. That's it. LaMelo Ball. This is interesting stuff here. 50 combined minutes in the back-to-back in these last 2 games. 75 minutes over 4 days. So he's played in 7 out of the team's last 9 games. Okay. Is LaMelo Ball playing basketball? Is that what's going on here? Now, what we saw in the beginning of the season was a similar stretch, and it probably did him in. He had 160 minutes in 5 games over 7 days. So since then, since coming back, he's played between 25 and 29 minutes. Now, it doesn't seem likely to me that there was this like preconceived plan for them to be like, all right, let's just go heavy with LaMelo Ball early. Let's give him a big old break, and then let's go slow. So something happened there. He either came out too heavy, didn't tell them he was hurting, wanted to play, or they were all just kind of dumb about it and just rolled him out there. And he's like, oops, I'm hurt again. Whatever the case may be, something bad has happened here. So it's not like this is just all great news, but they're getting back to playing him more. Am I going to tell you to go buy low on LaMelo Ball? No. I'm just telling you that the minutes over the last 4 days are starting to resemble that earlier stretch. So maybe there's a ramp up here, and he's going to have to shoot the ball better for any of this to work out. He's shooting 33% over the last 4 days, and shooting has been really bad for him on the season. He's got to get that going, and he's got to stay healthy. And you guys all know that. Brandon Miller had a rough shooting night, but otherwise back to business for him since returning. Con Knipple starting to slide a little bit in the shooting department, and that might be your first, indication that what goes up must come down. He's destroying fantasy leagues right now at a top 50 level. If you asked us at the beginning of the season, would Con Knipple be destroying fantasy leagues at a top 50 level? We would say probably not. Over the last 4 games, just top 100 with 40% shooting from the field, lower numbers across the board. Maybe it's not Con Knipple top 50 season. Maybe it's Con Knipple top 100 season this season. But if he plays, and even if he's top 100, he might finish in the top 75, kind of independent of all these shooting variances. He's just going to be on the floor. He's held his minutes. There's nobody there to fight him for these minutes. He was good on Saturday against Toronto, 20 points, 5 of 10 shooting, solid numbers across the board. So I would probably throw a dart at top 75 value for Con Knipple on the season, maybe a little bit more, but the concerns are starting to show. Ryan Kalkbrenner, a little bit of a slide with block numbers coming back to earth. Just 1.1 per contest over the last 9 games, 9 and 6, good for top 150 value. But it's a long cry from the top 40 value he started the season with, and he's at a top 65 to 85 position on the year. I think the top 65 to 85 number is actually probably where he will go for the rest of the season, which is still great considering he was barely drafted. Moussa Diabate, late round going forward, better than Ryan Kalkbrenner the past 2 weeks, but that's cherry picking a good sample there for him. But Diabate, I do like the way he plays. I think he showed up this season in great shape. a late round center, pardon me, the rest of the way. For Brooklyn, Michael Porter probable. Now they have 3 games in 4 days, so Porter missing a game seems likely. Cam Thomas at least a week away, if not more, with his left hamstring strain. Porter a top 40 guy. Claxton started slow, went big, Nicholas Claxton that is, and now struggling again. Rounding out to top 115, 120 value on the year. I think it's a good time to buy the dip. Noah Clowney fizzled out right when people were thinking maybe it wouldn't happen. 6 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist in his last game. What I've seen from him is pretty bad shot selection, and that's kind of hard to, hang on the guy. I've only seen about 20 or so possessions on his roll. Thought he saw the hoop, thought he shot. Maybe this is what's pulling him back a little bit. This is Brooklyn in a nutshell. The fact that he's at 30 minutes and only in the top 135 to 165 range. Yes, he peaked at top 75 during a peak sample for him. But I think the fact is we got to call him a late round guy at best. And if you need to look other places because you don't want to deal with the Brooklyn nonsense, you just do that. We even had a Danny Wolf sighting in 30 minutes on Saturday. Let's make him do it again before we talk about him. And Ben Saraf was actually even good, which tells you a little bit about how things are going. And if I would rank after Clowney, who I'd be looking for in a fantasy league, it would probably be like Tyrese Martin or Yegor Jomin. After that, he's actually made a little bit of noise, but I don't like any of them. Let's get out of Brooklyn. Let's get to the Clippers at Miami. Bogdan, that is, left hip contusion. Derek Jones out for weeks. Honestly, the only interesting thing in this for this team right now is, aside from are they going to implode and all the offseason stuff, might have been the predictor there. But John Collins, can he pull out of this nosedive? 3 games, which might actually be trade bait games. He's been about a mid-round guy. It's weird. It's 16 points, 5 rebounds, 1.7 triples, and that's pretty much it. I guess I'm just not buying in. I'm not buying into the style of play that the Clippers use. On paper, when you go, okay, what can John Collins do for this particular team? It makes sense. You want to get him above the rim. You want to get him kind of moving around the pattern, doing a little bit of this here and that there. But what you don't want is John Collins standing in the corner doing nothing. That's what they've been doing. Whenever he's been productive, he's hitting a lot of 3-point shots. That doesn't seem sustainable to me. They need a change in the way that they operate. And if you've lost as many games as they've lost, I guess you just got to ask yourself, if you're James Harden in particular, who's been around the most, Kawhi Leonard, half the games or so, is what are you personally doing to get him involved? And I don't think the answer is good. And you get a lot of excuses out of the locker room. And you saw James Harden hit a little bit of a viral moment last night talking about this, though. That's a little bit of an overstatement. It's just classic. They have one gear. Even Kawhi Leonard, especially at this stage of his career, has one gear. And if that gear is not working, can they shift to another gear? I don't think they can with John Collins. The only thing I can say for John Collins right now is it feels like they want to trade him. And if they do, maybe he gets traded to a better spot. But in the meantime, they might throw him out there as trade bait. And they might just say, hey, we got to get John Collins going, in which case you might get some late round value. But, I'm stretching to say that. As for Miami, all of their kind of injured guys are in. Jaime Jaquez, questionable with a groin injury, so mostly helpful or healthy there. Khalil Ware has a top 30 to 50 value on the season. And this thing happened really fast, guys. In 10 games, he played top 15 to 20 ball, and he's doing his damage in 25 minutes per game. It's really simple. Other than injury, and if Eric Spoelstra docks his minutes beneath 25 minutes per game, if one of those two things happens, then bets are off here. The only thing that can stop him from staying at a top 30 to 50 value the rest of the season would be fatigue. If he just if they give him 28 minutes per game, he's getting so many shots, he can't actually keep up physically. That's the only thing that I think, and maybe Tyler Hero cuts into his value a little bit, but he gets his buckets and his action and his activity off of different stuff than the stuff that Tyler Hero would normally take away from other players. So I'm pretty bullish here, and I know that people are pretty happy with Khalil Ware. I don't think there's any way that you can get in on this. And I don't think I would sell high is probably the better way to put that. Norman Powell, this is a guy that folks should have sold high. I think I was a little bit too bullish on Norman Powell staying in the top 50 range with Tyler Hero coming back a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. I think I made a comment that I was pretty excited about Powell keeping his top 50 value. I'm not at this point. I do think he can produce at that 50 to 75 range, kind of with his eyes closed for this team. That said, he's an injury risk, and it's actually possible that he doesn't do that. There are competent offensive players. There are competent ball handlers. There's a bunch of them, actually. Norman Powell had the entire team optimized for him in the first quarter of the season. That's not going to be the case going forward. I think 50 to 75 is in play, but if he was top 80 to 90, it would not shock me. And that's where he's been the last 6 games, 29 minutes per game, 22 points, 2.2 triples, 3 boards, 2 assists, 52.7% shooting. You can't knock it. 76.7% from the foul line on 5 attempts. Okay, fine. Let's knock that. But he started the season shooting over 90% from the foul line. So the regression was coming no matter what. He hasn't cracked 85% from the foul line since 2020-22. So this 76 ain't getting that much better. So it's the numbers need to be there in volume. He needs the full volume back. So the sell high period's over. Baseline top 50 to 75, decent injury risk. Maybe you got a little bit of sell high, because I don't know if people are willing to call him a top 90 to 100 guy just yet. So maybe you can get a top 75 that doesn't have so much injury risk and also has a little bit of upside baked in there. So I guess the sell high period's not over, but it is almost over. It is probably over. Tyler Hero starting off as a top 5 to 7 fantasy play, so that's fun. Way to go, kid. Bam Adebayo, top 60 to 70 on the season, as predicted. Andrew Wiggins, top 80. That's where he lives. Both of those guys, all of those guys, Wiggins, Bam, Jaime Jaquez, they all got a deal with the return of Tyler Hero. Jaquez, he actually showed up well in the last game by not playing because Miami struggled, and a lot of the stuff that he does well, it showed up in the film. So maybe Eric Spoelstra says, oh, got to get that guy back on the floor. But he might just be a top 125 to 150 guy the rest of the way. He needs some injury assistance to solidify his role. I think his play and I think his stat set can give him 75 to 100 the rest of the way, but it might be a bit of a dip here. And maybe not as much upside as other players. I'm not going to tell you to drop Jaime Jaquez right now, but a couple more games from now, if he's sitting in that 125 to 150 range, I'll change my mind with that. Pell Larson and Drew Smith are fun in top 200 formats and probably going to be discussed in a season down the road. Houston at Utah. So we've got Tari Eason as the only injury for Houston, which is kind of interesting considering they're dealing with depth issues. And that's all stuff we've talked about in the past with Fred VanVleet, et cetera. We got the Reed Shepherd story. If you weren't here for the earlier shows where I spent a long time on Reed Shepherd, he was ranked at 55 and 71 in the B150, drafted in the 91-20 range. Back on everybody's radars now. He's a top 45 to 60 value on the season in 25 minutes per game. He's only played 17 games because Houston's only played 17 games. So he's actually got a lot more games left than everybody else in the league. He's got 3 to 4 more games than the teams who have played the most. So that all together still gives him buy low value. And if he's a 3rd round value, from here until the end of the season on a cumulative basis, it would not be shocking. And you might be able to get him for like a top 100 player right now. Maybe the best buy low in the game for somebody that's not completely sucking. Amen Thompson, I won't say speaking of completely sucking, but it really sucks if you drafted Amen Thompson in the top 15 picks, which is where he was going toward the end of draft season. On that turn, oftentimes I think people were chasing that what if upside. He has just 1.8 combined defensive stats per game. Reed Shepherd has 2.3. The 3-pointers are bad with Amen. He's got 17, 7, and 5 for his popcorn stats. I think the one thing he can control to take this 75 to 90 value and move it to like, say, 50 to 60 or even 40/60 in 8 and 9 cat leagues is the defensive stats. If he pumps those up, he can get that back. But he can't get to the 3rd round without Alperen Şengün and Kevin Durant making a concerted effort to take him there. If one of those guys gets injured, obviously all bets are off. But right now, they're just not going to give him the basketball, and he's just out there floating. He's going to get his at certain times, and he's going to get his in transition. But when they get in a half-court set, he's passing and then clearing. And that is not going to cut it for a second round or even third round or even fourth round fantasy play. So he's got his work cut out for him. And it's a case where Houston really did go all in on KD and Şengün, and that's that. As for Utah, no injuries. The back-to-back might create some news here. Somebody like, say, Lauri Markkanen starting to drift toward the second round is Lauri Markkanen. So we got a dip in shooting is basically what's going on there. Keontae George getting some love with the national publications just in time to get a massive dud. 0 points on 6 missed shots, 8 turnovers, 1 rebound, 2 assists, and a block. So I was watching this game, and I was casually watching this game. It was very hard to watch. It wasn't close at all, and the teams were mismatched. But so Yusuf Nurkic gets pulled out of the game, and then he goes over to Keontae George, and he says, "Hey, sit next to me on the bench." And George refused. He was pissed. He's like, "No, no, no." And then Yusuf was like, "No, man, come over here. I'm like a vet, and I'm telling you, you got to do this." And then George is like, "No." And I just that's weird. And that was at the middle of the game. And I don't know if he was just trying to get him pumped up after a bad start or something is going on with Keontae George where he's pissed off. Maybe he comes out in the next game and has 40 or 50 because he's going to get it all back in one night. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting data point. And at the time I was like, oh, that's nothing. And then after that, the finish was 0 for 6, practically nothing in the stat sheet. And there was a lot of talk in the article by Mark Spears about the maturation of Keontae George. It's probably the case, if I had to guess, that he made a lot of bad decisions early on in his time with Utah with the ball and has a lot of confidence, and they've had to reel him in. And then these are just some of the speed bumps and whatever was happening that caused him to not get a point in that game was, something that kind of tapped into all of that stuff that he started off in the league dealing with. Now he's been great. He's been a top 40 to 50 guy. I don't think we'll let one game move us off that line. Nurk had one of his noisy nights. He tends to do that. He's a late round center. He gets attacked relentlessly by the other team. It's really hard to watch, but they need him out there to keep the offense on tempo, at least at this point in time during the season when they're trying to not be a complete bleep show. And I think at some point in time, either gets hurt or they decide they just don't want to get targeted on defense every single night. But Nurk doing his part for what he is and doing a good job being Yusuf Nurkic. Ace Bailey's been consistent. That's been nice. He's got a month now with solid late round value. Kyle Filipowski, too many bad games and not enough good games. 12, 8, and 4 last night. He's had a lot of that stuff. Those classic Kyle Filipowski lines I've been talking about. I think it's basically this. You got Keontae George with a way green light to shoot. He's taking a ton of shots. You have Lauri Markkanen getting everything run for him. These two guys, if it's not Markkanen getting the first catch, it's Keontae George taking it after that. Nurkic functions as a hub. You even have Kevin Love out there doing Kevin Love stuff. So Filipowski's just kind of floating out there, and it's not consistent. And I think once Nurk and Kevin Love exit stage left, I think you're going to see Filipowski lines, and the downside will be less prevalent. You get those top 50 lines out of Kyle Filipowski, and that's the hope, is that the last third of the season is Kyle Filipowski's season. Dallas at Denver tonight. Anthony Davis probable. Daniel Gafford doubtful. PJ Washington questionable. These injury reports are probably getting updated as we speak, so they could kind of go any way there. Brandon Williams questionable. Derek Lively out for at least a week. Banged up Dallas team. I think the real story here, aside from Anthony Davis and what happens with him, Cooper Flagg's pushed back up into the top 80 range this season. He had 3 games of top 50 to 65 value, 20 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, 1.7 steals, 86.7% from the foul line on 5 attempts, just 1 triple in that stretch. That actually makes me happy because it means that if he had hit his 1-3 per game, he's probably even doing a little bit better. And he's actually in the ballpark of where he was drafted by a couple of rounds. So that's nice. He needs to do way more in the cash counting stats. He needs way more volume. I actually think getting Anthony Davis on the floor will help him take some of the defense off of his back a little bit. And anytime PJ Washington is gone, I think it probably helps Cooper Flagg a lot because PJ Washington has been taking a ton of shots, and it puts Cooper in the number 2, just locked into the peak. He's in a number 2 option. It's probably the peak situation that he can have is with Anthony Davis on one side, a little bit less help on the floor with PJ Washington off. That and Najee Marshall, two guys that are going to kind of etch at his value, but I don't worry about Najee Marshall. I do worry about PJ Washington because he has a little bit of the standing and also a little bit of the ability with the ball handling and being a little bit of a tweener that has great matchups one night, not so great matchups the other. In those good matchup nights, it just takes the zing away from Cooper Flagg. And again, a guy drafted in the second and the third and the fourth round, getting you just top 100 value until lately. That's been tough to swallow. And you hope that Cooper Flagg has a breakout season just in general, because it's a good story in Dallas. They need good stories. We got a little bit of top 75 Najee Marshall as covered in the prior shows. I don't know if it's going to continue, but it's worth a look. PJ Washington, 25 points per game, 9 rebounds in his last 2 games. If efficiencies don't matter at all, he's still a top 105 to 145 guy. 9 cat leagues, that's not great. If efficiencies don't matter, you love him. Gafford continues to pop up on the injury report. He's just a top 100 guy going forward with injury risk. Yeah, we could talk about that early round stuff, but I think with him hanging on for dear life there, we don't want to rate him any higher than that. And Brandon Williams hasn't gotten it done with his opportunity. So I think you can move on if you haven't already moved on there. As for the Denver side, Peyton Watson and Cam Johnson are enjoying top 50 numbers over the past 2 weeks, getting a ton of run. I think with Watson, the little bit of a slide here in the last game, 27 minutes. It was an easy win. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 7 threes. Denver wins by 18 on the road. No defensive stats in that line. He still hit you a triple. He still got you 4 perfect foul shots. I think his volume is up. His percentages are up. There's going to be some regression here for Peyton Watson. I don't think top 50 value for him is really in play during this. Aaron Gordon is out. Christian Brown is out 4 weeks, maybe even more. I think we're looking at top 75 for him. And I think that Cam Johnson's going to be right there with them. In fact, their stat lines are so eerily similar. You should check that out. You would never have thought that Peyton Watson and Cam Johnson would have similar production over the last 3 weeks, but it's there. So keep an eye out for that. I think top 75 guy for those guys is what you're looking at going forward. Phoenix at Los Angeles Lakers. Ryan Dunn, questionable. Maybe not questionable, actually. I don't know. That right wrist sprain is it feels like it's ready to heal itself, and him being back in the lineup. Mark Williams probable, if not already ruled in. Colin Gillespie did take a funny step against Oklahoma City on Friday. He almost won the damn game in Oklahoma City, just throwing that out there. And then he ran up to chase the ball that he almost stole to take a last-second win and stepped into the scoreboard a little bit. So he stayed in that game, and then he also played on Saturday. So that's not keeping him off the floor. Grayson Allen is back. He's been a top 40 guy. I don't know if he's undervalued or overvalued at this point. All I know is that he should be a must-roster player and has a really good shot at top 50 production the rest of the season. Yes, he's an injury guy, but you got to love what they're doing in Phoenix, and you got to love what Grayson Allen is doing for them. Devin Booker's taken a hit. He's in the top 30 to 60 range, but honestly, I don't even care. These other guys will get hurt, and I'd rather have Devin Booker not having to tote the rock every single night, taking it relatively easy. In the past, he's gone so big, only plays 65 games or something. I want to see Devin Booker low and slow, 76 games this season. Give me that top 20 finish that way rather than being all over the place and not playing in March and April. Dylan Brooks, top 75 production in 15 basketball games. He's a must-roster player. Colin Gillespie, top 80 per game in 26 minutes. Number 35 to 40 on the season by totals. I hope you didn't listen to any drop advice out there. That would have been bad. He's doing fine. I don't think you need to sell high. I don't think the market's high enough on Gillespie for you to do that. Maybe a dip when Jalen Green returns, maybe a little dip with Grayson Allen back. Gillespie's even a little bit banged up, and he's been banged up for a couple weeks now. I just think there's not a market here for a sell high, and I think that he could just easily continue to cruise all season long, and it could just be a top 40, 50 finish for him. So I think we're overthinking it by selling high. Don't do that. On the Lakers side, DeAndre Ayton, questionable for the back-to-back as he gets right with his knee injury. Marcus Smart did not play on Sunday, so he's questionable. LeBron did not play on Sunday. And this question about is LeBron going to play back-to-backs, my take on it is if that was a definitive statement by J.J. Redick, and I just think the way that this thing was quoted and put out in the media by Kobe Price, I don't think Kobe Price had a bad report or anything. I just think that if back-to-backs were not in play for LeBron, That's going to be a story that's going to get a lot of run, and you're going to see that. So I think there was some phraseology there from probably the Reddick side that didn't quite capture the exact truth. If LeBron's not playing back-to-backs, it's really going to mess with his value. If he's playing in back-to-backs and it's business as usual, you got yourself at minimum a top 50 guy. I think, though, he's been playing at the top 100 to 125 range since getting back on the floor. And, of course, we don't want to ding him for that as he's just getting back on the basketball floor. And I'm not looking to sell high on B150 darling Austin Reeves. He's a top 7 or 8 fantasy guy on the season per game. I think his role is intact. Yes, LeBron might etch at it a little bit, but I think that they very much like Luka and Austin running opposite sides of the floor and dribbling circles around players and scoring at will. And that's going to do it for the Bruski 150 Bruski Breakdown 30-team extravaganza here on Fantasy NBA today, our third show of the day. Make sure you check out the cheat sheet. Make sure you get to sportsethos.com. Consider a membership. Good luck in your games tonight. Good luck in your week ahead. I will see you guys tomorrow for Fantasy NBA in the morning with Doc. Y'all catch you later.